Good evening and welcome to this 52nd edition of Vision du Réel, and welcome also to this first industry talk, which is called Filmmaking and Resistance. We are very, very happy and honored to have a proper hybrid talk tonight and to count on the physical presence of two masters of non-fiction cinema. We have the chance to have on the bench, on one of the benches, Vitaly Mansky, and on the other one, Avi Mograbi. They are both presenting films this year in the lineup. Vitaly Mansky is presenting Gorbachev Heaven in the Grand Angle competition, and Avi Mograbi is presenting 54 years of occupation. Oh, sorry. My God, bad me. I'm so sorry about that, which is running in our international feature film competition, which we are very honored to present here. And I'm really, really glad and happy to have the chance to count on our dear friend Orwa Nirabia, director of ITFA, International Film Festival, and I will be sure that they are in the best hands for this talk. Just a practical information on the page where you are potentially looking at this talk, on the forum page of the festival, you can ask questions directly. There is a box somewhere underneath the video, so do not hesitate. The question will be sent directly to our great moderator, Orwa Nirabia. And also to let you know that tomorrow there will be another industry talk at 5:30 Swiss time with amazing guests as well, Tabitha Jackson, Carlo Chatrian, Jason Ishikawa, and Hedi Zardi, so do not hesitate to connect to that. Yes, I hope that tonight will be very exciting. I hope the next days will be really exciting. We have a few days of professional screenings, and then we will have a few days of public screenings, so we are very exciting here at Vision du Réel, having 3 festivals at the same times. I wish you all a lovely talk, and I hope to see you all for real in 2022.
Hi, and welcome and good evening. I first want to congratulate the team of Vision du Réel, Emily, Madeleine, Violetta, everybody working for the festival for managing to pull this off this beautiful way. I am very much looking forward to watching all the films, and now it is a little emotional, to be honest, for me to be speaking, moderating a talk with these two masters. It is not often that I get to say that people like Avi Mograbi and Vitaly Mansky are some of the people who helped me, and I am sure many others around the world, in discovering our own courage, our own way of fighting fear, not fear externally, but fear internally, inside one's own body. Fear of saying what one feels one should say. And it is because they make this special kind of films that I would say are films that stem from the things that make them lose their sleep. It's not that they make films based on what is in fashion. It is not because they only simply believe this is necessary or important. It is because it feels always that the pain that is making one of them make a film is coming from within, from an overwhelming sense of injustice that is very personal. In the case of Avi Mograbi, this is the history of contemporary Israel that is something that many like me encountered and discovered through the filmography of Avi Mograbi. It was to me always very special to discover that on that side, and I come from the other side, from Syria, that on that side, I have a brother, a bit older brother, but still a brother, someone who can help me feel my own courage, someone who makes me feel I have to be as courageous as he is in being critical and in being fearless, actually. Vitaly Mansky, as my good colleague Joost Dame called him once, the chronicler of post-perestroika Russia. What Vitaly Mansky did in his filmography has always been fearless, simply. It did not feel personal for a while. And then with films like Putin's Witnesses and Gorbachev Heaven now, we discover how deeply personal all of the filmography of Vitaly Mansky is to him. That this relationship with his country, with his people, and with an overwhelming feeling, if I may say, Vitaly, an overwhelming sense of shame that this injustice is taking over a great country like his country, Russia. So I will begin by asking you both, maybe I start with you, Avi, um, about this continuous success in being courageous. Do you not feel afraid of making the films that you have been making?
Thank you, Orwa, for your kind presentation. I always wanted a younger brother, and it didn't work out. So I accept the invitation. I think, well, in a way, I think you're a little bit exaggerating. Not that I'm not courageous, I'm very courageous. But the thing is that Israel is a very specific and peculiar place. On one hand, it's a horrific military dictatorship for 5 million Palestinians living in the occupied territories under the Israeli military rule. But on the other hand, it pretends to be an enlightened democracy for its 9 million citizens, Jewish, mostly Jewish citizens. 20% of the Israeli population is Palestinians, but the vast majority is Jews. And for us Jews, Israel has created this situation where we can very easily speak out, criticize, say what we want, and the state very easily ignores us. So it's a strange situation, but I wouldn't. I'm not saying that things are not changing in the last few years. Fascism is growing in Israel, growing nicely, one should say. But until now, I have not reached the point where I needed to ask myself whether I will do a film or not do a film, because there might be some repercussions that I will not want to confront.
Thank you. I am sure that I want to return to asking you about the fear factor, because I think that maybe I exaggerated, and by that I made you exaggerate in making it sound very safe. And I think that there is some price still that one is paying for one's work the way you do. But before that, I want to turn to Vitaly and ask you the same question, dear Vitaly. How about fear? You are making films that people are scared of for you when they watch them. And not only films, there is also Art Dog Fest, the festival that you are running, and there is also your personal statements and your personal positions. that actually you choose to do. You stood in front of the FSB center with a blue pair of boxer shorts, to give a clear statement about the attempt of assassinating Alexander Navalny. And then all of your filmography had very strong critical positions, but certainly Putin's Witnesses and Gorbachev Heaven are really, in a way, from the viewpoint of the Russian government today, these films are crossing a line. How does it feel to you?
С оппозицией, да, то есть с властями.
Тут все очень просто, если ты уверен в своей правоте.
Here everything is very clear. It's very clear if you're confident in being true, being true in the truth.
И если ты уверен, что твоя точка зрения очень важна для людей, которые живут вокруг тебя.
And if you're convinced that your point of view is also very important for the people, for the surrounding, for the people around you.
Если ты уверен, что ты можешь им объяснить и помочь какие-то вещи переосмыслить и встать на твою сторону.
And also if you're able to explain and maybe even change their minds so that they can see differently, they can think differently.
Тогда не очень страшно.
Then, you do not feel the fear. It's not terrible.
Но, в принципе, так как мы все живые люди,
but, since we're all live persons, we're all alive.
Конечно, бывает страшно.
Of course, sometimes I feel the fear.
Но ты понимаешь, что ты об этом не должен говорить и не должен давать увидеть, что тебе страшно.
But of course, you shouldn't even mention it, and you should not show that you have fear in yourself.
Поэтому ты делаешь вид, что тебе не страшно, и ты говоришь всем: не бойтесь, делайте как я.
So you can tell everyone, don't be afraid, do like the way I do.
И это работает.
And it works.
I think this is a good plan. I just think that you made it very personal for recently, at least in the past couple of years. You made it very personal. You had a very strong take on Vladimir Putin personally in Putin's Witnesses, and you went on with Gorbachev Heaven in the same direction. Does this make you...
до другого, и вы могли бы этот страх чувствовать, это усиливается.
Вообще, по-настоящему страшно мне было не в России.
But the real fear I felt, it was not in Russia.
Такой животный страх я испытывал в Северной Корее.
The real animal fear, I felt it when I was in North Korea.
Вот там я понимал, что никто мне не поможет, если я сделаю один неправильный шаг, это будет конец.
And there I understood that if I do something wrong, nobody, really, literally nobody could help me get out of a bad situation.
Все-таки в России не так страшно, пока.
Well, for now, it is not that fearful in Russia. Not yet.
Но, конечно, Россия очень уверенно идет в сторону Северной Кореи. Очень уверенно.
For sure, Russia is getting in the direction of North Korea.
Но я надеюсь, что я не доживу до того момента, когда Россия превратится в Северную Корею.
But I really hope I won't be alive, in that moment when Russia will transform. They will transform.
Нет, я надеюсь умереть в своей кровати в 120 лет.
Yeah, I hope I will. Of course, I will die in my bed at the age of 120.
Поэтому я думаю, что это до Северной Кореи очень долгий путь. И в России можно не бояться. И в России те примеры, которые показывает тот же Алексей Навальный, это примеры такого героического бесстрашия, и надо этому следовать.
Of course, there is still a very long way to North Korea in Russia. Although, of course, the situation with Alexei Navalny, it shows how it could be, the direction that it's taking, of course. But it will take a lot of time to get to North Korea and Russia.
И, кстати, когда мы делаем фестиваль Ардукфест в России, это такой тоже как бы образец бесстрашия. Мы делаем его абсолютно наперекор той системе, которая победила и которая властвует в России.
And by the way, when we organized our festival, Art Fest in Moscow, it is a way. Of course, it is a fearless act to go against the power or against the situation. Against the power, against the authorities.
Thank you. I think it is a question back to you, Avi, just from fear being outside. With your new film that is playing in Vision du Réel now, in its premiere in Berlin, I think some particular German newspaper was accusing you of being anti-Semitic or something like that. I think sometimes the fear or the attack can come from surprising places, maybe. Would you comment on that?
Yes, the situation in Germany when Parliament has declared criticism of Israel or support of BDS as a new form of anti-Semitism is really is absurd. I'm an Israeli. I'm Jewish. I live in Israel. I pay my taxes. I can't see myself as an anti-Semite. The anti-Semitism that I was taught at home was when my grandmother, who lived in Leipzig, went out for errands with her two daughters sometime in 1932, and the Hitlerjugend beat her up, and nobody came for her help, and this is why they left Germany and went to Palestine. This is anti-Semitism as my grandmother taught me. I doubt if criticizing the atrocities that Israel is doing in the occupied territory to the Palestinians in the occupied territories, if this is anti-Semitism.
There has always been this discussion over the relationship between art and politics. To me, the work of some filmmakers like both of you, Avi and Vitaly, is an example not of political film, but of film being just simply naturally political. It is not that you make films to serve your political opinion. Your political opinion is just part of who you are when you make your films. And in this line, I want to ask you about the sense of hope in making these films. When you make a film, Avi, how much do you hope or believe or see that it will have an impact, that it will change something? How do you see this point?
Look, when I was young and naive, I thought that making political documentaries was a way to become part of to be part of the discourse, to be a speaker in the socio-political discourse. But those days are gone. I mean, I've grown up and grown cynical, and it's very clear to me that, well, films can play some minor role in a big discussion, but they don't really have the power to change reality or to be a serious player in changing reality. Okay, I'll say it like this. When I make the film, I'm so angry, I'm so furious that I'm sure the film will change the world. But then the film is made, and I return to the wise man that I have become, and I know that that films are not, my films are not going to change anything. And of course, the next question would be, so why make them? Because I can't not make them. I can't not speak to you right now. There's no, I mean, and you all know well how some of us try to reach out to forbidden places, to meet forbidden people like yourself and others, people from the other side of the border, from the other side of the line. And it's not, we are not going to bring peace. I promise you, we are not going to bring peace. But we must talk. I mean, how can we not talk? So making films is about the need to talk, to provide my point of view. This is what I know. If I could paint, I'd paint. If I could write, I'd write. I can make films. I make films.
I'm remembering that Vitaly Mansky, a couple of months ago, wrote a beautiful statement about how there was a documentary film on YouTube in Russia, or something like YouTube, seen by 15 million people in Russia, but still nobody was demonstrating in the street, although in the film they could see scandalous, painful truth. How would you respond, Vitaly, to the way Avi defined or described his relationship with changing society through film?
Настолько фильм меняет реальности.
Но вообще Ави сказал очень правильную вещь.
You said a very interesting thing.
Критика действующих властей властями воспринимается как критика фундаментальных национальных основ.
To criticize the authorities, the actual authorities, they take it as a critics of the basics of these authorities.
Потому что власти всегда стараются приватизировать само понятие родина.
The authorities always try to privatize the definition of motherland. What is a motherland?
В России говорят, Россия – это Путин, Путин – это Россия.
In Russia they say Putin is Russia, Russia is Putin.
И если ты критикуешь Путина,
if you criticize Putin,
ты критикуешь свою родину, значит, ты занимаешься антигосударственной деятельностью.
So if you criticize Putin, it means you criticize the country, so you are anti-government. You have an anti-government position.
И ты, Орва, говоришь про эффект фильма Навального, который посмотрело 120 миллионов человек.
And you, Orva, you mentioned the film that more than 120 million Russians watched online.
Да, это не сильно произвело небольшой эффект для людей. Люди по-прежнему голосуют за Путина.
Yeah, it didn't have a real effect on the authorities, and like before, people will vote for Putin.
Но более интересна и показательна реакция самого Путина.
But what is interesting is the reaction of Putin himself.
Она заключается не только в том, что Навальный сидит в тюрьме.
It is not only that Navalny is in a prison.
Она заключается в том, что Путин вчера объявил всю партию Навального, а это десятки тысяч людей, может, сотни тысяч людей, экстремистской организацией.
But it had an impact on the fact that Putin yesterday named or declared Navalny's association as an extremist association. So it includes more than 10,000 people.
И теперь каждый человек, который заплатил на счет Навального хотя бы 10 рублей,
so every single person who paid to Navalny's association even 10 rubles,
становится спонсором экстремизма.
So he becomes the sponsor of extremism. He's sponsoring extremist ideology.
И по российскому законодательству его можно посадить на 8 лет в тюрьму.
And according to the Russian constitution, then this very person, could be sent to prison for 8 years.
И это ответ на фильм Навального.
And this is the answer to the film of Navalny.
То есть власти понимают, что фильм Навального им очень опасен настолько, что они переходят к таким радикальным действиям.
So they understand, and this way we understand how they fear, the impact of such a film, and how they fear Navalny to take such measures.
И интересный кейс. Этот фильм является абсолютным суперсобытием в документальном кино в России.
And also it is interesting to note that this film is important in the Russian, in the cinematography. Yes, in the cinematography.
И в России есть национальная премия кинокритики, которая решила вручить премию Навальному за его фильм. Как событие года.
And there is a special prize, and it is like the event of the year that this festival gave the prize to Navalny for this film, for this documentary film.
И что происходит?
And what happens?
Союз кинематографистов, это кино-юнион, Cinema Union, выходит из состава этой премии.
So the Cinema Union is now leaving this association festival.
А режиссер Андрон Кончаловский, может быть, вы знаете такого?
The filmmaker Andrei Konchalovsky
снимает свои фильмы с этой премии, потому что он не хочет находиться в одной премии с Навальным.
So he's pulling his films from this festival because he doesn't want to have anything to do with Navalny.
То есть в кинематографической среде мы не видим настоящей поддержки хотя бы того, что делает другой. Если сами кинематографисты в России боятся говорить открыто, они даже боятся признать того, кто открыто говорит.
So and what we can see is that even the people who, if they do not openly criticize Putin, they even fear to support the one who are shooting or filming and criticizing the authorities.
И это тоже эффект фильма Навального.
And this is also, an effect of the film.
И если мы говорим о страхе, то страх одного отдельного человека, вот мой личный страх, он ничего не значит по сравнению со страхом всех остальных, которые из-за страха вообще молчат и не сопротивляются никак той диктатуре, которая происходит в России.
And if we go back to fear, you mentioned the fear, my own fear is nothing compared to the fear of the mass of the million of people who do not even dare speaking or criticizing.
Я, как директор фестиваля, вижу все документальные фильмы, которые снимаются в России.
And as the director of the film festival, I watch, I screen almost all the films that are presented to the festival.
И что я могу сказать по результату?
And I can say in the final.
Фильмов острых, актуальных, фильмов протестных в России с каждым годом становится все меньше и меньше и меньше.
In Russia, every year there are less and less films criticizing or being in opposition of the system.
Потому что кинематографисты начинают уходить от этих тем и искать более комфортное пространство для своей работы.
Because the filmmakers, they take distance from these topics and they try to shoot films, with less political impact in the content.
I think this is a very, of course, understandable phenomena, but that many filmmakers would be afraid and start to avoid politics or being critical. However, I think it is very different when we look at someone like Andrei Konchalovsky now, or usually in the last 2 decades, someone like Nikita Mikhalkov. And we see that it is not about avoiding the subject, but rather about taking a clear position that is pro-government. Can I ask you, Avi, about this point? In your experience, do you feel that work like yours is supported by a community of filmmakers around you, or do you feel lonely and that the critical approach you work with kind of is making is very singular or an isolated situation?
Well, there is a very small community of critical filmmakers in Israel making films that deal with the different problematics of the state of Israel with the Israeli ethos. But it's true that in the last few years there are less and less, or there are lesser critical films, and also there is a feeling that okay, in Israel we have film foundations that support filmmaking. All of my films until the previous one and the present one were supported by those foundations. Now, when the previous film did not get support, Between Fences, I said to myself, okay, maybe they thought it's not such a great film. It's possible. I'm not an instant hit maker. And now this new film presented here at VdR did not get the support of the foundation, of any foundation, Israeli foundation either. And all this is in the background. There are voices coming from the government about how what good is a foundation if we don't control it? They said the same about the public service. What good is the public television? What good is public television if we don't control it? And there are lots of attacks on artists and filmmakers. You know very well the story of Advocate by Rachel Jones and Philippe Belaish that was highly criticized by officials, and that the lottery removed their support of a prize that they won. Later it reversed, but there was a big attack on the film, on the filmmakers, and on the festival that gave it the first prize. And so more and more I think that maybe the atmosphere is getting to the foundation's decisions. Because, you know, the worst censorship is not state censorship. State censorship is wonderful. The worst censorship is self-censorship. When you start calculating whether you should or shouldn't say something, or should or shouldn't support a film or an artwork because of its content. This is the worst censorship, and I fear that we are getting there.
Can I ask you? Of course, as you well know, I started my career and I grew up in a country that had a different context. But from that context, I hear you, Avi, and I think maybe in this situation, it might be liberating not to get money this way from these foundations, and to make sure that you protect your independence by not getting money from them. How do you feel about that?
Well, it's true. In a way, it's liberating, and I should not complain also because the film was made. It's there. The fact that I didn't get the support of for those two films didn't stop them from being made. But on the other hand, look, my films are made first and foremost for Israeli public. My career is much bigger, or I'm much more known outside of Israel. But still, I want to be accepted at home. I want to be heard at home, and so it's, on one hand, it's liberating. It's liberating not because they don't intervene. Once they support the film, they don't intervene in the content. So it's not liberating in the sense that I got them off my back and I can do whatever I want. I do whatever I want anyway. Or people do whatever they want anyway. Those foundations don't intervene that deep. But it goes together, the fact that you don't get the money, the fact that for those last two films, I don't even have a broadcaster. No broadcaster. So I had to put them on YouTube and pay someone for digital marketing. The fact that people don't come to, well, they don't go on cinemas, but they don't come to watch them at the Cinematheques. The fact that they never succeed in leaving the culture columns and move to the socio-political columns. That the discussion around the film begins and ends with two film critics writing good or bad things, and that's it. So there's no liberation here.
I'll go to you, Vitaly, and ask you about money. I have nobody who have seen your films would not simply see that you do not compromise on what you want to say in your film. But you also, like every filmmaker, you finance your films. So what can you tell us about this paradoxical challenge?
Ну, прежде всего, когда я выступил с критикой политики Кремля по аннексии Крыма и вообще по всей этой ситуации в Украине.
No, above all, when I, as a filmmaker, when I criticize the authorities or the politics or Crimea and the annexion of Crimea, for example.
Государство официально сказало, что я веду антигосударственную деятельность и запретило официально поддерживать и финансировать какие-либо мои проекты, как фильмы, так и фестиваль и прочее, прочее.
But the government said very quickly, they announced, they labeled me as an with anti-government activities, and therefore I did not receive any funding for the festival, for the filming, for the shooting anymore.
И с этого момента мои фильмы практически в России перестали показывать, хотя до этого они были очень популярны и очень много о них говорили, и они были очень видны.
And from that moment, all my films that before 2014, they were shown everywhere in Russia, in the television, in the cinemas. From that moment onwards, all my films just disappeared from the screens in Russia.
Но это, со мной я как-то разберусь с этой проблемой. Я бы хотел сказать о других документалистах.
But it's okay it's fine with me, and I can deal with it. But I would like to talk about other documentary filmmakers.
Вот мы на нашем фестивале Ardukfest ежегодно показываем там более 100 фильмов.
We show every year more than 100 films during our festival.
Российских фильмов.
Russian films.
И я могу сказать, что из этих 100 лучших фильмов государство поддерживает максимум 2-3 фильма.
And from these 100 films, the government is supporting maximum 2 or 3 films out of 100.
Все остальные фильмы люди снимают без государства, как правило, на собственные деньги.
And all the rest of the films, the filmmakers, they shoot on their own expenses, and with no federal government fundings.
Но фильм живет тогда, когда его видит зритель.
But the film exists when the audience, when you have viewers, when you have an audience.
Но получается так, что кроме фестиваля Ardukfest большинство этих фильмов больше вообще нигде в России невозможно показать.
But the problem is that apart from Arduk Films Festival, all those films are not being seen anywhere else in Russia, apart from the frame of the festival.
И что, например, происходит вот 2 недели назад?
And what happened literally 2 weeks ago?
В день открытия фестиваля в Петербурге,
in St. Petersburg for the opening day,
где должно было быть показано 40 фильмов в 3 кинотеатрах.
And 3 different cinemas, the 40 films were supposed to be shown, to be seen, to be screened.
В день открытия во все эти 3 зала
And the opening day in these three cinemas,
приходит полиция и опечатывает эти залы, закрывает залы. Прямо вот в день открытия.
And on this very day, the police came and sealed the entrance of the cinemas, the very day of the opening.
И просто фестиваль в этот момент умирает.
And there was the film festival is dying.
И все фильмы, которые только там можно было показать, они умирают в это мгновение.
And in this instant, in this very moment, it is also the end of the film that are only shown during the festival. It is also the end of those films.
А в Москве, где этот же фестиваль идет,
And also but in Moscow, where the festival is also taking place,
полиция не закрывает залы.
the police did not close the cinemas.
Но каждый день на фестиваль идут атаки прокремлевских групп, которые просто врываются в залы, останавливают показы, угрожают зрителям, приходят с красной краской, чтобы залить экран.
But every day in Moscow, every day there were groups of extremist people, yes, who were trying to
Military extremist people.
Yeah, nearly, yes, who tried to stop the screening. They would, you know, they would spray with red painting on the screen to stop the screening.
И полиция ничего не делает.
And the police did not intervene, did not do anything.
И, в принципе, режиссер, который видит, что он сделал фильм, этот фильм невозможно показать нигде, никто его не увидит, я не думаю, что он дальше продолжит делать такое кино.
And in the end, the filmmaker who shooted this film, who had the hope to show the film in the frame of this festival, in this very moment, probably he feels that he won't shoot or he won't do this kind of film anymore because it has no chance to be seen in the country.
И я даже не знаю, что с этим делать, откровенно говоря.
And to be honest, I really don't know what to do with this.
У меня нет никакого рецепта, нет никакого плана.
I don't have a recipe or I don't have a plan.
Well, earlier, before we went live, I cynically said to Vitaly, well, at least you got some attention and not complete ignorance. But I take my words back. I'm not sure I'm ready for this kind of an attention.
I think that the point that brings all of us together, allow me to add myself to the group, is the experience not only of making films, but also of showing films. And I think that, of course, me and my partner Diana and our friends back home in Syria, we started a film festival in 2008, and it worked for 4 years and so on. And we had very similar experiences to what Vitaly is talking about now. But it is not very known, Avi, that you have a good part of your life connected to showing films, not only to making them. Can I ask you to tell us about your experience of showing art house cinema as a political action?
Well, yes, this is something that started in the year 2000 when the second Intifada, the second Palestinian Intifada broke out. And at a certain moment, the Israeli army bombed the antenna of Radio Palestine, the radio station in Ramallah. And Simon Bitton called from Paris and suggested we organize a screening of a film by Rashid Mashrawi, a Palestinian filmmaker that lives in Ramallah, originally from Gaza, as a protest against the blowing up of the Radio Palestine antenna. And this started an action that lasted for 6 years of screening Palestinian films or films about the occupation. It was in the Tel Aviv Cinematheque. The Cinematheque welcomed us to hold our screenings there. And this was all with the support of Palestinian filmmakers who agreed to allow us to screen their films there, and sometimes even came to do Q&As. And we called it the Occupation Club. And this lasted for 6 years until 2006, when Israel invaded Lebanon for the second time, or the second Lebanon war. It wasn't the second invasion to Lebanon, but second Lebanon war. And then the whole boycott concept developed, and filmmakers started or refused to allow us to screen their films, Palestinian filmmakers. And then we stopped, we called off the club. A few years later, I started in another place, not in a public-funded place, in some rock club, screenings of Arab films, the Arab Film Club, with the help of yourself and other Arab filmmakers who supported it. Well, there it's complicated. You want to screen Arab films to a public that is totally ignorant or doesn't want to know about the life around the villa, the life in the jungle, yes? I hope my irony crosses the internet. But so, and obviously not all Arab filmmakers are accessible. You cannot reach them. There's not necessarily dialogue. With some, yes, people like you or Sama Muhammad and others, there is a dialogue, but not always. And you have to decide whether you show the films without their consent, without asking for permission. Sometimes knowing that if you'll ask, you'll get a no permission. Or what is the lesser or the bigger evil? Not to show the films or to show the films without permission? So you obviously compromise the rights, the author rights of the filmmakers if you show without their consent. But sometimes you may think that it's more important to show the films and be criticized for that. And so this Arab Film Club lasted for 2 years, and 4 years ago I started another club. This time we show films from all over the world, but also a lot of Arab films, sometimes with permission, sometimes without. And I know that I know it's problematic, but I have no solution for that. If I don't show the films, I think it's even more problematic.
I don't have the authority to judge the choices. I just believe that it is an exceptional thing to understand. You are both filmmakers in your own right. The majority of your effort over your life and your careers is making your own films as directors. But then you dedicate so much energy, time, effort, money, and also risk to showing film. And to me, this is a very precious and respectable endeavor that I have to understand. So Vitaly, why did you choose not only to make films, but also to hold a festival?
Ну, я сначала хочу Ави сказать одну вещь.
I want to tell Avi something before.
Когда я смотрю израильские фильмы, у меня все-таки ощущение, что это демократическое государство.
When I watch Israeli films, I have the feeling it is a democratic government.
Потому что я в этих фильмах вижу конфликты, вижу критику, вижу какую-то реальность этого нерва времени.
I can see the critics in the film. I can see the nervosity, yes, the tension in the films, in the criticism. Yeah.
И пока я тебя не услышал, я думал, что проблема не в производстве фильмов, а в их распространении в Израиле.
And before I heard what you said, I thought it was a question of distribution of the films in the country. The problem was in the distribution.
Потому что я был, например, председателем жюри в Гонконге, когда мы давали приз фильму «Адвокат». И я не мог себе представить, что у фильма «Адвокат» будет такая сложная судьба в Израиле.
Because when I was in a jury in Hong Kong and advocate got the prize, I did not even imagine that behind there was such a scandal and it has been such a complicated story.
Мне казалось, что этот фильм очень, ну, так сказать, очень нормальный для израильского общества, так сказать, у него, ну, как бы, он естественный для израильского общества, потому что там есть эта проблема.
I thought it was exactly an authentic film for the Israeli society because it was the core of the problem.
И когда мне директриса фестиваля в Тель-Авиве позвонила и сказала, что там лотерея забрала деньги, я, конечно, был очень удивлен.
And then when the director, who was it? The director
Директор фестиваля.
of the director of the festival, when she called him and told him that the lottery took or pulled the money from the film, he was very surprised.
Также я был продюсером последнего фильма Герца Франка «На пороге страха». Герц Франк.
Okay, and so and you were.
Я был продюсером.
He was the producer of this film, Gers Frank.
Герц Франк.
Gers Frank.
You know Gers Frank? Gers Frank.
No.
Herz Frank.
Herz
Frank. Oh, sorry. Herz Frank.
На пороге страха. Last film. Last film, Herz.
Yes, about Yigal Amir, about
yes.
assassin of Yitzhak Rabin, yes.
Да. И когда этот фильм запретили показывать на фестивале в Иерусалиме, я был тоже очень удивлен, что это происходит в Израиле.
And when they forbade the film to be shown in the festival in Jerusalem, he was also very surprised that this film was not selected for.
Yeah.
Нет, его пригласили.
Oh, so they
It was
invited him.
selected, but the screening was
Yeah.
cancelled.
Да.
It was pulled out of the competition.
Да.
Yes.
Это очень странно. Я
It's very
люблю
strange,
Израиль,
very
я
weird.
много бываю в Израиле,
I
но это
love
какое-то
Israel.
несовпадение
I've been there many times. But
израильского документального кино и Израиля как государства. Это как будто на разных планетах.
it doesn't match. It's as if the Israeli cinema and Israeli government, it doesn't match somehow.
Yes.
Но когда я смотрю российское документальное кино, они очень похожи с тем, как выглядит российское государство. Когда я смотрю российские фильмы,
But when I watch Russian films, then, but I have this feeling that when I watch Russian films, they match with Russian government. Yes.
и нет, с российской ситуацией.
Yes, with the situation, with the context. Yeah.
Это вот для меня новость, то, что ты сейчас рассказываешь, это новая информация.
It's like it's something new for me, what you're telling.
Yes, but this is exactly what I was trying to say earlier. Israel is a strange format. It's a country that has created for the Jewish population, for the majority of the population, a feeling that it's a wonderful democracy. At the same time, there's a crazy indoctrination of us, all the citizens, security, occupation, Iran, etc., and we grow up to believe that the army is the best thing that ever happened in world history. So, but at the same time, we feel as if we live in a wonderful democracy. Now, the chief inciter in Israel is the prime minister. He is the person who really abuses anybody who opposes his position, definitely old leftists like me. And sometimes target people or institutions or organizations like Breaking the Silence that I made, my new film is made of testimonies that they have collected. So it's a strange creature. Historians all the time are writing now how the changes that Israel is going through is a reminder of late the 20s in Germany,
And, you know, it's very difficult to say it in Israel because you don't make comparisons. We don't compare ourselves to anything that is German because of the Holocaust, of course. So, until now, we didn't have too many political murders. Not too many.
А может быть это потому, что Израиль воюет, что война?
No, maybe it is because Israel is fighting, because there is war.
There is no war.
Ну, Палестина все равно там...
There is no war. There is an occupation. Israel is occupying 5 million Palestinians.
Yes, I know that.
No
I know
war.
that. I mean, it's okay. It's a war situation.
But the war is the indoctrination is based on this idea that we live in a constant war. But there is no war. We are an occupier.
Okay, occupied. It's also war. Occupied. It's war or not war? It's military job or what is it?
I think
it's military.
Vitaly, if I may, I think we maybe cannot answer which was first, the chicken or the egg. So I want to go first. I would like to remind our audience that they are very much welcome to join us by adding questions in the right place on the player. And we will continue while we gladly receive their questions and try to include them. But I want to talk about something totally different for a second, and that is the choice of the aesthetic or the artistic choice of approaching critique. Because there is, for example, in your work, Avi, there is always a clear and very unique, a signature approach of deep irony. So there is this mastership of using the art of irony as a vocabulary. I think the first time I saw a film of yours and I was so surprised by this language that I found very special was when you worked on Ariel Sharon in How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love Ariel Sharon.
I fear and love Ariel Sharon. Again, I complicate titles, yes.
Yeah, but they stay with us on a much more meta level, than in simple words. So I think it is a question to you. How do you define, or what would you tell us about this artistic choice that you respond to all of this pain by this continuous sarcasm?
I'm not sure it's an artistic choice. It's a personal. I'm stuck with this personality. And what can I do? And he's ironic, and he takes over my films. He hijacks my film time after time. So it's not that I think here I will, do this and that route so that the irony will come out. It's how, the way you talk, physically talk, the way I physically talk, the way I think. I can't. It's impossible to not to have the irony come out. In this new film, The First 54 Years, an abbreviated manual for military occupation, I play an instructor for military occupation. I say I am Avi Mograbi, but 2 seconds later, I become the instructor, and for 2 hours, I provide the public, the viewers, with suggestions of how to successfully maintain a military occupation. Of course, in the back of my mind, I think that there is such a person in the world. that will give you, I mean, there are so many Machiavellic advisors that think of Dr. Strangelove, okay? This is not in the world, this is in the world of fiction. But Dr. Strangelove, who wants to destroy the world, of course, he's not based on total fiction. There are people like this who will advocate the destruction of the other with no scruples. So this is ironic to play this role and to suggest to you how to maintain your occupation when you finally grow up and have one of yourself.
I'm doing my best, Avi. I'm trying. I think it's not very promising, but let's see where that leads us. Vitaly, I think one of the most special things to my eyes in your filmography is your choice or your approach that makes every new film you make a new aesthetic style, a new directorial approach. And I think that you have a very special talent, or maybe will, to reinvent the way you make the film every time. If I go back to your older films, to Wild Wild Beach, for example, and then I jump to your film in Korea that you mentioned in North Korea, Under the Sun, and then I go to Putin, and then I go to, for example, your most recent beautiful film, Gorbachev Heaven. Every time you're making a film, you are reinventing the tools. You are looking at your style and language, at the camera, the sound, the way the film works is new.
Будто каждый раз что-то новое, да? Инструменты новые.
Ну, если нам дан шанс прожить только одну жизнь, то хотя бы в кино мы можем как бы прожить много разных вариантов своей жизни. Поэтому я предпочитаю разнообразие.
Okay, so if we are given only one shot, one life, at least I want to explore within my filmography, within cinema, I want to explore plurality, multiplicity.
Мне правда нравится каждый новый фильм начинать как первый фильм.
It's true that I like to start every new film like it's a new, как это новый?
Ну, как новый фильм, как новая жизнь.
Yes, like a new life. Like a new life. Every film like a new life.
Я скажу по секрету.
And I'll tell you as a secret.
Между нами.
Between us.
Я знаю хороших режиссеров, которые всю жизнь снимают один фильм. Я не представляю, как это можно делать. Это же очень скучно.
And I know some filmmakers that all their life they will shoot one film. And I don't know how they make it because I think it is extremely boring. It must be a very boring.
I can see that in your work. And it is, I believe, a real signature. The way that you always make something that looks new, that looks very different from everything else you made before. What would you think when you mention, Avi, the point of self-censorship being the most fearful? Of course, I think that to me, and certainly to the history of cinema, this question of censorship, self-censorship, and overcoming censorship, we've all been mentored by Soviet cinema. The great cinema of the former Soviet Union that was always deeply critical, but also lived between the lines of censorship.
И это вот эта способность
to me, the connection between different cinemas in this sense is something that I'm always very curious about. What is it to you? How do you see what kind of films influenced you? Of course, from the title of your Arik Sharon film until what you said 5 minutes ago, we clearly see that Doctor Strangelove has some impact on you. But what can you tell us about the films that make you fall in love with cinema, the films that give you this courage to seek these films that you make, the inspiration of this approach that is critical yet still keeping its artistic integrity?
I was not given the option to fall in love with cinema or not. I grew up in a cinema. My father had a cinema. So I, since day one, or since being very young, I watched films all the time. Not only in his cinema, also I had the free card, free entry to all cinemas in Tel Aviv. But the most impressive thing was to watch cinemas with my father for his selection, because my father died many years ago. And at the time there was no DVD or VHS or whatever. He would watch complete films in 35 millimeters in a private screening room, and sometimes 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 films in a row. And it was crazy, like whole days. And sometimes he would take me, and of course, the films were, I was a child growing up, and the films were before censorship. So I also saw things that I wouldn't dream of seeing. And obviously, my father could always say that he didn't know that this was coming. So I saw endless films, and I can't tell you which is the film that made me want to make films, other films. And truthfully, when I was a teenager, I thought I wanted to be like European filmmakers, arty filmmakers of the time, Wim Wenders, etc., which didn't happen, luckily. But if I can say, and I'll give you 2 examples of 2 films that I adore, and or maybe more. Yeah, but let's start with those 2 that are very, very different. And I want to be those 2 filmmakers. I would have loved to be Chantal Akerman. Jeanne Dillman is a film that definitely changed my life. And I would have loved to be Francis Ford Coppola. Apocalypse Now is, I think, is a masterpiece. Of course, how can you sit those 2 films on the same couch? Here I am.
I think now we understand. Can I ask you the same question, Vitaly? Your relationship with the history of cinema is something that I'm very aware of. You are an expert of the history of cinema, at least of Eastern European and Russian and Soviet cinema, and much more than that. But what do you tell us about what inspired you, what changed you?
Вообще, я очень любил в детстве смотреть кино.
In my childhood, in general, I loved watching films.
Но я никогда не пробовал снять кино в стиле тех фильмов, которые мне по-настоящему нравятся.
But I never tried to shoot films in the way the filmmakers that inspired me, for example. I never tried to copy any filmmaker.
Когда я учился в школе, я посмотрел Андрея Рублев-Тарковского, наверное, раз 30 или 40.
When I was a student at the VGIK at the school,
No,
not
в школе, в школе.
In school, you were a schoolboy.
Да, до института.
So when I was a schoolboy, I probably watched 30 or 40 times Andrei Rublev by Tarkovsky.
Я обожаю этот фильм.
I love this film.
Но я не представляю, чтобы я снимал такое кино.
But yeah, I can't imagine that I would film like this film.
Я люблю Феллини, я люблю Антониони Blow-Up, но...
Antonioni, yes, Blow Up, Fellini.
Я, кстати, мало люблю документальных фильмов.
And by the way, I don't really like documentary films.
Может быть, только Дзигу Вертова по-настоящему люблю.
Maybe, yeah, for real, I really love Dziga Vertov.
Человек с киноаппаратом. Человек с киноаппаратом. Man with camera. Cameraman.
Man with a moving camera. Yeah.
Да. Но я не думаю, что можно или нужно сейчас снимать такое кино, как «Человек с киноаппаратом».
But I don't think now we have to, we must, we should film like the way he shooted this film at that time.
Мне нравится Каянис Каци, Готфри Реджо. Каянис Каци.
Каянис Каци, I don't know.
Каянис Каци.
That's what it is. It's Kayanis Katze.
Каянис Каци, Готфри Реджо. Но мне кажется, если ты сейчас будешь снимать фильм Каянис Каци, это будет очень пошлое, банальное кино.
But I think if I start to shoot like this, it will be probably very vulgar way of filming. It wouldn't look like that.
Поэтому нравится одно кино, а снимаешь другое
Therefore,
кино.
I like some kind of films, but if I shoot and I film, I realize films in my way.
I think that we learned so much from both of you, and I think that we could leave you in peace now, because I know that Avi, you arrived to Nyon today. It was quite a trip, and I'm very thankful to both of you and to you, Sophie, for the very kind and helpful translation, for the team of Vision de Réel again. And I think you give us so much as persons and as filmmakers. And I hope that you will feel that you are certainly not alone in this. There is the point of one's own home, but I think your home and our home is much bigger. It is not defined by borders and cultural lines. And I think that you have so many friends and you inspire so many everywhere. So I'm very thankful. And also on behalf of my friends at Vision de Réel, welcome and thank you. And we hope that everybody enjoyed watching.
Thank you, Owa.
Thank you.
Well, it was not a full meeting, but I look forward to the next opportunity to hug you, and we'll do that soon, I hope.
Yes.
I'm sure we will.
Now we go drink wine without you.
Yes.
I can't tell you how sad I am and how disappointed that I am not with you, and how jealous I am that I'm not with you. So we will make it up. Enjoy the festival and have a good evening.
Bye, Owa. Thank you.
Bye.
Goodbye.